Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Platinum Talks. This is Mark Lewis with Platinum. I have got the distinguished honor to have two great guests on today. I've got Dr. Sam Wang and Dr. Stuart Bernsen, some of the co-founders of Chiron. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Doing awesome.
Yeah. Great. Well, God, I tell you what, we were just talking. We've known each other for 20-something years here. Traveled around the world a little bit, seen each other's practices and stuff. So it's been really, really my pleasure to have you on today. And I'm excited to talk about you because what you guys done in chiropractic is unbelievable. I talk to people all the time, especially students coming out. They say, what I'd like to really do is start a franchise. I'd like to have a franchise and do like that, and have lots of offices, stuff like that. And all of a sudden they open one or two and they go, I don't think I can do this. But you guys have done it. You guys have done it in a big way and for a long time. So I'm really excited to talk today and get a little bit more about maybe a little bit of your secrets in there, see what we can do. But let's kind of start off. Can you tell a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are and what your path has been?
Sure. I came out, I'm a Palmer grad, graduated in 1992. So that's a lot of years ago. And bumbled around in practice until I found the right mentors and right coaches to help me grow. And once I found the right people to support me, I really exploded. And that's kind of how Sam and I met. Sam was a student at Sherman College and preceptored with me and was a pain in the ass as a preceptor, but it turned out to really pay off. So I had a fairly high volume practice. We were seeing about 500 to 600 people a week with a very small team. It was a real machine. And Sam came in and documented everything we did. So although we didn't have any written procedures and protocols, we did things the same over and over again. And Sam wrote the recipe and went out with a couple of his partners and opened up their first practice, and in short order duplicated what I had built. So that was in 2001 that you graduated. You fast forward to around 2005, 2006. I had 7 practices with 2 partners, and Sam had 5 practices with 2 partners. And in the middle of 2006, we sat down and said, maybe there's something for us to do that's bigger and better than us doing our own individual things. And that's where Chiron was born. So we officially started with the vision that we would create a place for chiropractors to come and learn how to be wildly successful chiropractors and not have to worry about running the business of chiropractic, and really leave the business to professionals and train chiropractors how to be unbelievable clinicians.
I think, Mark, you touched on it right in the beginning of this, mentioning that there's a lot of interest independently of new providers or existing providers out there looking to potentially franchise what they're doing, right? And I think that's a big distinction of what we're doing differently, is that we're not a franchise. And there's a difference between, obviously franchising and kind of being still an entrepreneur in this business model, as opposed to, we're looking for doctors that just want to be phenomenal clinicians and get patient outcomes while educating their patients on how to utilize chiropractic in a wellness lifestyle. We're not looking for well-rounded business people who, have an interest in wearing multiple hats and doing a bunch of different things. We want doctors to just be great doctors. And then we provide all of the administrative support services for our providers and their clinical staff so that they don't have to waste any energy and resource learning something that they were never trained in school for.
Yeah, I think that clinicians or graduates, when they're going through school, they don't realize how many different hats they actually have to wear. They never get defined in chiropractic school, nor should they. It's not, you go to school to become a chiropractor, not a entrepreneur or business person. You find out that that's what you need to do. So, you have your accounting hat, you have your CFO hat, You have your finance, accounts payable hat, accounts receivable hat. You have your marketing hat. You have your advertising hat. You have your IT hat, and just to name a few. What we did is we professionalized all of that. So we found the best of the best people to run each of those departments and build professional teams behind them. So every department that supports the chiropractor is professional grade. Like, they're at the top of their game. So our chiropractors could be at the top of their game, delivering really gold standard care.
Well, talking to a lot of those doctors as well, especially when they've been in business for a couple of years, I say, when I go in and say, what do you want to do? So I just want to adjust. And that is a huge thing. And if you guys have solved that issue to where chiropractors can just adjust, and everything else can be done for them, that's tremendous. I also want to thank you guys as putting Platinum System on top of that list as well. I know you guys have been clients of ours for a long time. You could have chosen any system out there. I know other people have tried to take you away from us as well, but we want to thank you. We think we got the best system too. So thank you guys for hanging in there. But that's an interesting model, because a franchise is really somebody owning you above it. There's not really that psychic ownership of what's going on, where you have with Chiro One, you really kind of have that psychic ownership of that kind of model that you're in charge. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
And not coming from an in charge, but more of making sure compliance, we're staying up with, what all the rapid changes that are occurring in the industry, as well as in best practices and in regulations and rules, but also then being able to properly equip our clinics with the latest technology, again, fantastic software such as Platinum, and working with, and partnering with organizations like that. And then also, from the equipment side, having digital imaging in all of our facilities, having the latest in outcome assessment and functional, questionnaires, having, the best of the best, adjusting tables, so that you're not trying to start, on a dime, of creating just a hodgepodge and ad hoc, type of practice just to kind of get your bearings. You are driving the luxury vehicle, of chiropractic practices, operating in a Chiro One or in a MyoCore practice. And so doctors get to be incredibly proud. And more importantly, they get to have all the resources to provide the best quality care for their patients, as opposed to going, well, if I had this, I could do that extra for my patient. They don't have those limitations and those resources.
So your doctor is stepping into a turnkey solution, which is incredible.
Kind of give you an example, two different examples. One was, and it happened fairly recently, we just acquired 4 established practices on the West Coast. And there was a compliance issue in one of the offices that blew out of control, and was much larger than it ever needed to be. And our team of administrators swept in, and we've only been together for about 6 months, 7 months in these practices. And the founder of those practices literally said, "Thank God I have a team behind me, because I would not have been able to do what you guys did in the time that you did." I mean, we have a general counsel that swept in and started all the communications, a PR team to get ahead of any negative, response that might have occurred in the public, and, a clinical operations team that handled everything, HR that handled the challenges that might have occurred with employees. It was just that, had it been left to one person without all the resources behind him, could have blown up and been a weeks or months long mess.
Yeah, and that guy is I know who you're talking about. He's been a very successful chiropractor for many years.
Very successful.
To have that team behind it, and him to say that's a strong endorsement right there.
Yeah. So, it's a different way to practice that historically has occurred in the profession, right? So historically, you either came out and you were an associate in an office under somebody, or you went out on your own. Mm-hmm. Probably in the last maybe decade, 8 to 10 years, graduates and doctors now have more choices. What we talked about, they could go into a franchise model where, you know, they may have the support of the master franchise, or you come into, you know, a private chain model like a Chiro One model where you have all the support and resources, and everything's really aligned for our doctors to win. Everybody's, you know, really aligned for the same outcome.
Well, I know I've run into you at the Parker seminar where you've had literally an airplane full of people there. And I've never seen so many people so happy and behind the Chiro One mission and what you do right there. But one of the things, Sam, you've talked about what's called a 12-week fellowship program in chiropractic. Can you tell me a little bit about more of that and how, you know, what makes that successful as an organization?
Yeah, so, you know, again, another great industry first. You know, we recognize some of the deficits we have coming out as providers was, you know, the understanding, not necessarily to practice business, but really the understanding of the business operations of a practice. We don't get trained well in school, nor is it really the institution's responsibility, as well as the documentation side of medical necessity to obviously then be in an insurance payer type of program. You know, there's a lot of trend in the last, you know, 10, 15 years of, you know, consultants promoting more cash-based, mainly because of not being aware of all the rules and regulations, right? And it's just easier if you're just a solo practitioner to go down that path. When I would say, actually, you can make 2 to 3 times the collections per visit utilizing insurance, especially in a model that's very, very compliant to how we practice. And so we decided then, hey, there's a big, big need. Oh, sorry. And then the third component is that professional development that usually as providers, it would take us 5, 10, 15 years sometimes to reach a certain level of success. We decided, wouldn't it be great if all of that information was organized into a format so that we actually have 25 training modules. And again, no different. When I say industry first, you know, I'm talking specifically in Chiro, because no different when you look at the non-MD providers, the podiatrist, the optometrist, and the dentist. They've all understood that 4 years of their medical training postgraduate is enough to get them licensed and safe to the public, but it doesn't get them where they need to be as clinicians, as also as operators of the practices. And so no different, chiropractic is needing the same. And so that 12-week fellowship, whether it's coming in while students can preceptor, similar to my experience, you know, I had that, I wish Stu had some sort of manual or something written down with all the cool things I was observing, right?
It's all up here.
Yeah. And instead of, you know, and again, it was all through years and years of trial and error. Stu figured out something that worked and created a process flow for that. Wasn't documented well. And so we created then the fellowship program for students in their last trimester or 2 prior to exiting, or to doctors that have had failed associate opportunities out there. Unfortunately, you know, it's a dirty truth in our industry. You know, we're notorious for eating our young. We're notorious for, you know, underpaying and over-promising opportunity, and many times it doesn't come to fruition. And so we said, hey, let's be able to take then those docs that are still principled and passionate about what they're doing. They're just sick and tired of having to wear the different hats and not wear them well, to come into a program to get educated and trained so that, again, it just secures their investment of being successful out in practice. You know, our chiropractors in our model are some of the most wildly rewarded, you know, financially. You know, you know, we designed this program so that it's really this modern version of psychic ownership of that practice, right? And then the profitability of having that type of ownership in terms of how you operate, so that you can see patients and focus on patient care, and then yet generate the incomes we deserve through the impacts we make in our community.
Yeah, I think it's
got to have that win-win for sure.
Yeah, I think it's created a really good blend of the chiropractor being able to have some autonomy in their office and having it feel to the patient like they're not being corporatized. But on the other side of that, they're getting all the benefits of standardization and corporatized practices, which are attractive to patients. It adds credibility, not to, just from the public's perception. One of the reasons why we came together and wanted to achieve this major outcome was to define chiropractic to the public. Right. One of our strengths and one of our greatest weaknesses in chiropractic is the diversity. Mm-hmm. And that breeds a lot of confusion in the to the consumer, where, some chiropractors do acupuncture, some chiropractors do tonal techniques, some chiropractors, are doing upper cervical or acupuncture, nutrition. And I'm not going to speak to the value of any of that other than to the consumer, it breeds confusion. And we wanted to create a place where we started to define it for the consumer, and we took it upon ourselves to really up the level of it and really create a gold standard in and around clinical practice, where we're measuring patient outcomes, where we've spent years creating proprietary treatment guidelines that it's an algorithm of care way before it was even a buzzword in healthcare as far as guidelines go. Now if you look across healthcare, guidelines are talked about all over the place. These are the things, looking at an EHR and what you had mentioned, we've been with Platinum for years. And we were lured away and did a trial on several of our practices, and it was a disaster. And we went back and, went back to our roots. And, you guys have been there all by our side all along the way. And, and it adds to the support of our clinicians, being able to really focus on delivering care while really documenting what they're doing in order to make sure that they're getting reimbursed, that the care is standardized, that they're following guidelines, that they could really support medical necessity and deliver to the patient.
I know you've talked about it several times already, and I'm sure you guys have a small target on your back, maybe from some of the insurance companies and stuff like that with all the stuff you guys do. So being compliant, I'm sure, is a huge part of your day-to-day operations, for sure.
Yeah, and I would change that lexicon from a target to more of an open door.
Exactly. There you go. I'll say that.
I like to look at them as partners, because I'll tell you, most, and when I say most, 99% of the people that I come in contact with at the insurance payer groups are incredibly supportive, and they want to be able to actually say, let's use this conservative trial of care. Let's go to chiro for musculoskeletal, as opposed to, obviously the harmful side effects of drugs or surgeries. And so most people out there are really enthusiastic, but as Stu mentioned a little bit earlier, it's the failure of our systems of how we document medical necessity and especially the outcomes is what really then has made us as a profession suffer, and not being able to do that, appropriately, and having a strong system so that it doesn't take a half hour of your time just to chart the information that you need so that you can actually get those reimbursements. But it's, we really look at these guys as partners out there. And again, I think it's the future of how our industry should go, so that we're working with all the other supportive, providers that are in the healthcare industry, as opposed to just going, hey, we're just going to stick to our little lane and that's all we're going to be working on.
Mark, we could talk for hours on this, but I think what's really exciting, just to kind of leapfrog off what Sam said, it's really exciting to start getting the ears of payers that are really looking at, so we shouldn't be looking at limiting chiropractic care. We should be looking at expanding chiropractic care in order to save downstream healthcare expenses. And, that's one of the benefits of a very large physician group, with standardized care delivery is that we could go to a payer and start piquing their interest in flipping the paradigm for them. And we're in the middle of doing that right now with one of the largest payers in the country that goes, we understand the value of chiropractic. We understand that it takes healthcare dollars out of the system. We just haven't figured out how to measure it. And so we went to the lowest common denominator of healthcare, of trying to reduce costs by just putting a dollar limit or limiting care. But if you guys could measure the outcome and measure it against patients that did not go this route, then that's a solution. And of course, it takes having software partners like yourself. It takes having standardized care models. It takes us being able to document cases across all of our practices the same way, so we could measure outcomes and prove it to payers and employers that chiropractic is a better solution than opioids and surgery.
So what you're saying is absolutely huge, because you're not only just helping the chiropractor, you're helping the entire profession by showing these payers. Because when I said the word target, I guess I talked to too many people out there that feel like they're going to be a target, try to get around it. But you guys have actually partnered with them, gone out and sought them out and understand how they work and teach them how chiropractic works. That's gigantic. I mean, that's beyond just helping the chiropractor, but on the chiropractic.
Your statement is really accurate, and we hear it all the time. When we go out to partner with practices and look at acquiring them and bringing them under our umbrella, we hear over and over again, we fly under the radar. We try and fly under the radar. And we're like, why would you want to do that? Yeah. If you could, document your care.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And why wouldn't you want to be on their radar if you could do that? And Sam knows better than anybody, because he is an expert on medical necessity and documentation, that we've got a huge problem in the profession. And I don't think it's unique to chiropractic, but it's bad in our ability to really document our care.
Definitely.
And Platinum's offered us the flexibility to be able to do that and do it in a very expeditious way. Our top 20% practices are probably seeing 300 to 500 visits a week. So they're busy practices,
and their notes are done real time.
Yeah,
that's huge. Let's kind of talk about the practice a little bit. Let's get in kind of what would be like a typical day for a doctor in one of your practices.
It's really great. We designed our clinic patient hours really conducive to having a balanced lifestyle. And when I say that, I mean, when we work hard. And so our practices are only open Monday through Thursday. We start pretty much at 7 in the morning and we go until about 7 at night. And we have a 3-hour lunch break in between. So 2 shifts broken up. And from the time they get in, the team has all of their responsibilities and roles, but they start seeing patients half hour in, and then they, continue to go until obviously they go into the various reported findings appointment hours. And then, they're finished at the end of their day. And so it's a Monday through Thursday schedule. Very, very intense, so that then you get the 3-day weekends to then recharge and then come back the next following Monday.
Awesome. Well, I also noticed, like in the past couple of years, basically you guys were mostly in Chicago, in that area. I know you had practices, a couple miles down the road from each other, a lot of practices, and you've really broken out. I know you're in Wisconsin, Indiana, Kansas. I went to one of your practices there in Texas one time when I was living in Texas. Kind of what's next? Where are you moving to, expanding wise?
Sure. So in 2017, we took on a private equity investor to help us expand and grow. And so that's part of what you saw in the last going on 3 years, the rapid growth concentrated in the Midwest, but starting to move out of the Midwest. it's really interesting, how chiropractic has popped up on the radar of people outside of the chiropractic industry, where, investors that are institutional investors are looking at places where they could invest their money and see that they could earn a return. And they know that you've got to have a unique solution to a very large problem. And chiropractic is that unique solution to a very large healthcare problem. And so we took on a partner that has really supported us in our vision to grow chiropractic. And, we're at about 80 clinics by year's end, Sam?
87.
87 clinics by year's end. We anticipate that to double in the next 18 to 24 months, and continue to grow through both building out clinics from scratch and partnering with other chiropractors that want to be under a bigger umbrella, till we hit, the vision's always been 1,000 clinics. And in order to really achieve a tipping point in how consumers utilize chiropractic as part of a wellness lifestyle, we think that, we'll continue to grow steam as this goes, and it'll grow exponentially. It's been fraught with a lot of challenges and a lot of wins, and it keeps getting better. Our product keeps getting better every year, and when it comes down to it, you got a couple chiropractors running a pretty large business that, we've made a lot of mistakes. We're not business people. We're chiropractors doing business. We've just had a lot more practice at it than the average chiropractor. So,
I want to go back on a term you talked about there for a second. You talked a little bit about, you found investors, the financial world. How does the financial world kind of view chiropractic in their eyes and stuff?
Yeah, so that's pretty much one of my sole jobs, is to go out and tell the chiropractic story as well as the Chiro One story to healthcare investors. And I started this around 10 years ago. In 2010 was where we dipped our toe into raising capital to help us grow. And 10 years ago, the conversation was all around, the initial conversation was convincing investors of the value of chiropractic, its legitimacy in the musculoskeletal and healthcare realm. Today, that never comes up.
Well, I'm sure they see your model now, and it probably
and
is knocking on your door, huh?
Yeah, and they get the value that chiropractic brings to reducing healthcare costs.
Definitely.
So, it is really exciting to see outside money flowing into our profession.
That is nice. That's really good, especially because there really hasn't been that outside financial world putting money into the profession at all that I know of. I don't know if you guys notice that either, but
it hasn't really worked successfully in the past, up until probably around the past 5 to 10 years, with the joint franchise that's publicly traded, that seems to be getting onto the right track as far as profitability, and some of the other franchises. And there's other outside investment into chiropractic. So 10 years ago it was unheard of.
Well, I know your guys' philosophy since I've known you for so long, and I'd say some of those other other business that you mentioned don't have the chiropractic philosophy that I know you guys do. And I think for a professional, or for the profession, what you guys are teaching your patients is probably that lifetime wellness. Avoid the medical industry as much as possible. Seek alternatives if you can before seeking the medical advice. Where I think that's is really strong for you guys to push forward there for sure.
Yeah, and I think and I think all chiropractors actually can agree. We should be, as doctors of chiropractic, the primary portal of entry for all musculoskeletal, right? And through our training, we then get to determine the direction of that patient, whether it's conservative treatment or we refer them out to, an ortho or, for surgery or their primary for some medication. But having that chiropractor as the portal of entry makes a better outcome long-term for both patient as well as, the financial insurance relationship. So it just makes sense, and as you said, we're for sure two principled chiropractors. It's not just a job for us. It's how we live our own lives. But, it's also universal in that, when Stu mentioned, a few minutes earlier, as we standardized the protocols and procedures, a clear distinction, though, is we didn't standardize treatment. And so each doctor has full autonomy to treat their patient as they see fit. So we then prescribe custom care plans for our patients, as opposed to what we have standardized is the delivery model of the service, meaning every one of our facilities has digital imaging. Every one of our facilities has computerized range of motion, computerized muscle testing. So again, all of the equipment. And then even, I think, just as equally as important as we talk about consumers or our patients, we've really done a phenomenal job standardizing the customer service experience, the patient experience in our practices, so that every Chiro One practice you go into, the teams are just incredibly excited. It's high energy. It's usually the best hour of the patient's day when they come into a Chiro One practice. And so that way, again, that experience is standardized and consistent among every Chiro One location, but the provider has full autonomy to, again, prescribe treatment as they see fit.
Yeah, that's great. Doing installations of platinum like I've done, I've probably been 800-900 practices over the last 20 years. And you're right. When I walk into a chiropractic office, I don't know what I'm going to get.
Right.
It's all over the map, and it's kind of challenging. So to see that standardization of that they know what they're going to get when they come to a Chiro One office is great. Talk about this a little bit. In 2018, you were Chiro One, but then you changed your company name to TVG Medulla. How's that impacted the company, and what does that mean for the profession and stuff?
Yeah. So Medulla is the management part of the Chiro One Wellness Centers. So there are 70 plus individually owned and operated Chiro One Wellness Centers. And Medulla is the management part of that. So Medulla hires all the support staff and administrative staff. It provides the billing services. It provides the marketing for the Chiro One Wellness Centers. So, it's named that because it's the brainstem of the chiropractic practice. It controls and coordinates all of the vital functions of a chiropractic practice behind the scenes. And so, we delineated the management function that we were doing separately because we wanted to expand outside of just the Chiro One Wellness Center model, which we did in 2018, late in 2018, early in 2019, where we are partnering with a hospital-based chiropractic company that we now have, I think, 14 offices. They're called MyoCore, and they're all based either inside of hospitals or in medical office buildings adjacent to hospitals. It's a complete different model than the Chiro One model, but we wanted to be able to demonstrate that what we do as Medulla is supportive to the chiropractic industry, and it's not necessarily, it's important what flavor of chiropractic you deliver, but we want to build gold standard delivery models across chiropractic. And so we're trying to be as agnostic as we can as far as how who we're supporting within chiropractic. And MyoCore is, they were the only one doing what they were doing. They were delivering top-notch care in a unique care setting, And we just saw a really interesting opportunity to help grow a company with a founder that was struggling with growth, but had a really large vision. It's been a great partnership. And you're going to see in the next 24 months, MyoCore really exploding because these large healthcare systems are looking for a solution.
Well, that's exciting. Putting chiropractic into the mainstream. That's really exciting.
Yep. And that's primarily a physician referral driven model. So almost all of their new patient acquisition is coming from interprofessional referrals. Yep.
So is that the big vision here? Is this the big goal of Chiro One here?
You
to kind of move in that direction? I'm sorry, I was going to say, is that the big the big vision or the ultimate goal here for Chiro One is to move both those directions, not only underneath the hospital care, but also in the communities as well? And
it is. We believe there's a place for both, and that the more people that can be touched by chiropractic, the louder our voice will be. As you know, you've been in hundreds of practices. By and large, chiropractic patients are raving fans.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. And so if we could continue to grow the number of people that are seeing chiropractors and reach that tipping point of where it's no longer you see a chiropractor becomes who is your chiropractor? You know, dentistry went through that struggle and they overcame it where, you know, it's just a foregone conclusion that you see a dentist.
Exactly. Giving that little red pill.
Right. And so, you know, we've got a lot of work to do as a profession. And, you know, we hope that we're doing our part to support that transformation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, what would you give, you know, like for advice for like a student or doctors, or they're just about to graduate? I mean, what can you tell them?
I can cover that one. You know, I talk to students almost on a weekly basis now, you know, because I'm traveling between most of the institutions, the academic institutions out there around the country. And the biggest advice I could always give them is to secure a plan, meaning, you know, go start visiting 30, 40 clinics before you graduate. So not only do you know what you would like to do in practice and how you would like to practice, but also what you don't like. You know, a lot of times, you know, when you don't have the eyes and ears and you don't have the experience yet in practice, you might not know kind of the decision making of how to decide whether this is something I want to do or I don't, but you could quickly walk into a practice and go, oh my God, that's not something I want or I will do in my office, right? And so the more experiences they can encounter visiting chiropractors and seeing different styles of practice, because there are a lot of successful models out there, but the more models they can see and you know, and shadow with, the more I think in that decision-making process, they'll be able to make really strong, you know, decisions on. And then secondly is to secure their opportunity. You know, right now, there can't be more opportunity out there in Chiro with associate positions or franchise opportunities or, you know, partnerships or, you know, or group practices like ours, that they should really do their homework prior to, you know, making that decision. But then they should also be prepared prior to graduation that they have secured a job. You know, we have also decided to do an industry first. We are signing LOIs with students in their last year prior to graduation. So contingent upon them walking across the stage and successfully getting their license in their state, they are secure with knowing that they've got a position in our organization to come out of school for and start practicing, and you know, as soon as they can, as opposed to kind of having the end goal of just walking across the stage and then kind of figuring things out afterwards. You know, we're the last profession, I believe, that really needs to secure, especially with the amount of debt load we're taking on now as students. You know, it's 2 to 3 times what it was when Stu was in school to what it was comparable today. You know, I hear students are coming out with now as high as 300, 350 with their undergraduate and their graduate degrees. that it's just this huge mountain that they have to get over financially without knowing really kind of what the plan's going to be, and kind of letting, the universe kind of figure that out for them, as opposed to them taking control of that and securing that up front.
I tell you, those guys, I mean, if I was in school going through it and I knew I could come out and have a secure job with a good team behind me, with great philosophy behind me, I think I would definitely seriously take a look at Chiro One and see exactly what's going on. Because that, I mean, like you said, in schools, they just don't teach that stuff. They don't teach them how to do it. They want to teach them how to adjust to get through their boards and pass. And then all the business stuff is go figure it out. You'll figure it out. That's amazing to do that. And if you, with your success story, because like I said, I've known you guys for 20 years now. And I mean, you guys have been successful, and I'm sure you've gone through some learning curves, maybe one or two, but you got it figured out and it's growing strong. How can they get in touch with you? How do they find out more about joining Chiro One as a doctor, or selling their clinic, or just becoming part of your team? What can they do?
If you go to our website, www.chiro1.com, all the way at the bottom, there's a little tab for careers. Or you can go to our Medulla website. As Stu didn't use the formalized term, Medulla is the MSO, or Management Service Organization, right? It's the umbrella that oversees, as Stu mentioned earlier, the administrative. If you go to medullallc.com, also, you can look under careers, but there's quite a different, also you could use, if you're tech savvy, if you want to text 63566, and then write the word fellowship if they're interested in learning more about our program. So there's multiple different ways. And then most importantly, we encourage shadowing opportunities. You would never buy a vehicle without test driving it. Well, at least I hope you don't, right? So that you really understand what you're committing to. We highly encourage all visitors, whether you're interested or not, and you just want to learn some best practices, come out, schedule an appointment, sit down with us. Let's talk about, best practices. Let's talk about what we can do to support each other. Again, we recognize this model isn't for everybody, and that those who really still have that high intention to be entrepreneurs, absolutely, we're supportive of that. And anything we can do to help them gain that traction, we're here for them. And then those who see that, hey, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, I went to school to be just the doc and be a great clinician, we're here for them as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, guys, I cherish this time we have together. I've learned so much today. I want to thank you a ton for being on the line with me today and sharing some of your success here with some of the clients at Platinum, and hopefully people outside of Platinum, as well as we're going to put this online for other people to show. Any last words or thoughts you'd like to share?
There is one other thing I want to add, is that anybody that is interested should call up, go on the website and pick a doc that you relate to, whether it's where they're located or all their bios are there, where they grew up, what school they went to. Pick up the phone and call them and ask them. Ask them if they could go in and shadow. If you're kicking the tires on Platinum, they're in every one of our practices. If they want to see Platinum in real time, working in an office, they're welcome into any of our offices. Just call up and, make a time to come in.
Awesome. Awesome. I have one last question here I kind of thought of. Anything on technique specific? I know a lot of people come out technique specific. Is that an issue or anything going into Chiro One?
No. And again, the doc has that full autonomy. The two conversations I have as a doc to doc is, so long as your technique can get outcomes, and we measure outcomes objectively, and then the amount of time it takes your technique to treat that patient, if we're both getting outcomes in whatever packages you want to use, and then it's just a matter of, does your technique take 30 minutes to treat a patient and mine can do it in 10? Well, then that's just a business conversation at that point. But they have full autonomy to treat the patient the way they see fit, so long as they're getting those outcomes that we can document, and that it's in a manner that obviously supports performance of that practice, so that we can handsomely reward our providers and our support team.
Awesome. Well, great. Again, thank you so much, guys. Go to their website, chiro1.com. Check them out. Give them a call. These two great guys. They got a great team. We work with a lot at Platinum. They're very responsive. We work well together, and it's been just a super relationship. And we can't wait to see what the years to come bring, for sure.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks again, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.